This is Jake Ciely, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football season.
Good news, everyone! Let's get dangerous. This is so good!
I know!
It feels so right!
It's Jake Ciely.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Nice try, Moonman, pretending not to know. Earth's greatest mastermind!
You just made the list!
I thought you said that was a myth.
Just because it's a myth doesn't mean it's not true.
If you all blindly follow my plan, we may have a chance.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you Ducks. Hopefully you had a good Christmas, holidays and everything, and hopefully you didn't get Derrick Henry, like a lot of us, including myself, did. And not only Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry versus Josh Jacobs on the other side. So, for me, and I know a lot of you dealt with the same thing, so let's just talk about the good stuff. Let's get into everything from Week 17 that'll look towards Week 18 if you happen to be playing just for fun, any championships, whatever it might have, or also heading into the offseason with some thoughts for next year. And going back to that game and then, well, actually that day, and Quentin Johnston have another big one. They do get the Broncos this week. Quentin Johnston, it's nice to see him back in the mix. It's nice to actually, he's been the best wide receiver for the past 2 weeks for the Chargers. But again, it's the Broncos. Definitely boom or bust. I would not move him inside the top 25 despite that success. And if anything, this might be a good game for Ladd McConkey to bounce back as we've seen against the Broncos. Definitely more in the slot, definitely more over the middle is how teams can beat them in the passing game, less so on the outside. But let's talk more about Sunday. Got to do a little bit of a different rundown. Let's hit quarterbacks first. And yeah, right out of the gate, yay, we probably get Kenny Pickett. Congratulations, Raiders. Speaking of congratulations and things doing well in Week 17, the masterclass of tank jobs, including Geno Smith. And I know Geno Smith didn't get hurt on purpose, but it's just quite funny to see Zamir White out there and this team doing everything they can to throw that game. And very well at doing so, but probably get Kenny Pickett in Week 18, which means Trey Tucker and Michael Mayer are two options you could possibly use. Tucker is going to see volume, and so will Mayer. If you need a tight end, if you want Trey Tucker to be in that wide receiver 3 conversation, hey, you got it, and you got Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Wouldn't count too much on Genty having much more than an RB2 performance, though. Don't get the Giants matchup, which even as good as the Giants matchup was, Genty struggled to get much going on the ground because that offensive line is also falling apart, and including resting some players that are even somewhat questionable. But another quarterback we might see in Week 18, Riley Leonard for the Colts. Also Michael Pittman hurt in that game. Leonard has some rushing upside, similar to kind of a little bit like lesser Jackson Dart, but you could look, actually, he kind of runs a little bit more like Josh Allen, to give you an idea. But there's rushing upside there, is the point. And Josh Downs comes into play as a waiver pickup if you're playing, like I said, an 18 with Michael Pittman. I would expect to be out in that game. And hey, maybe we get some value back for Tyler Warren at the end of this season with Leonard back at quarterback, or at quarterback. Tyler Shough, speaking of quarterbacks and doing things well, at least, Shough is surprising many, including myself, fitting that system really well with Kellen Moore. If you need a running back, Audric Estime, I want to get too excited off last week. Still volume reliant, still Estime, still in the fact that he's a mid-ish level running back. I would compare him to Kamani Vidal when he was in lead of the Chargers. You still might get a low game if the volume is not working out. And hey, if they fall behind quickly, you're not going to see as much of Estime as you would if they were pounding the ball. So that, and sorry for the Taysom Hill, we knew he was a flyer. We knew he was a chase. We also didn't know that it was going to be a big fat 0, though, on top of it. And one more quarterback. Oh, man. Bryce Young, beyond awful. And Tedero McMillan, sick or not. When you have 14 completions for 54 freaking yards, look, I know it's going to be tough to stomach to go back. Maybe McMillan's stomach is also turned after that game. And before it, it's going to be tough to go back to him. But hey, we get the Carolina at Tampa Bay for the division. Tampa Bay continues to be a pass funnel defense for opposing teams. So I would put Tedero McMillan back in your lineup. I mean, he's been McMillan. He's been a wide receiver 3-4 throughout the most of the season, mostly a 3. And I know it's frustrating. But if you're playing a Week 18, you know frustration comes with the game. Hey, speaking of frustration, let's go back to that Josh Jacobs thing. That was a hell of a lot of fun, wasn't it? Least valuable player, let you down 2 weeks in a row, right when we need him. But Emmanuel Wilson, I would expect to see backups in this game. They can't change their playoff position. Everything's already locked in, that being the Packers. So even with the backups, Emmanuel Wilson, unless he gets a rest too, and then we're turning to Chris Brooks. But Emmanuel Wilson in this game, meaningless game against the Vikings, but volume should be there for him with maybe even Malik Willis again, although Malik Willis, as you saw, will steal some of those, but you don't have to worry about Josh Jacobs this time around. So watch that for the wide receivers too, just in case they decide to rush Christian Watson or anything. And then going back to the Buccaneers, another dud for that backfield. Bucky Irving also letting us down. Not quite as bad as Josh Jacobs, but not when we needed it. Carolina should see a little bit of a rebound. Maybe they stop going with the full-blown committee and realizing this is just a mess. But I think it really comes down to Baker Mayfield is clearly not 100%. You got to save the day touchdown for Mike Evans late. Mike Evans has to be out there. Chris Godwin obviously has to be out there for you. And Ibuka continues to be on the bench. But if you need the deep flyer, maybe it's Jalen McMillan, because if you were just tuning in at this point of the season like 2-3 weeks ago and watched the rest of the year, you'd be like, hey, Jalen McMillan's that third wide receiver, not that Ibuka guy. So, hey, if you need flyers, it's week 18. Have some fun with that. Let's see where else. We'll go to some more running backs. With the Browns situation, the Dylan Sampson, Raheem Sanders was basically almost a 50-50 split. Sanders as in the early between the tackles, Sampson the pass-catching option. It's against the Bengals, so maybe a little bit more upside for Sampson, but that's one to maybe just completely stay away from unless you're desperate, similar to just last week. And we saw some of the value in Sampson in the passing game, but it wasn't as good as we hoped. What could be what we hoped, and good what we hoped to see in Week 18 is Malik Davis going against the Giants. Would expect the Cowboys to not risk Javonte Williams playing through injuries, nothing to play for at this point. The Giants' run defense, as we know, is a great one to go against, and Malik Davis could bell cow his way into a top 10 performance this week. It wouldn't be a shock. More situations like that, more for receiver here, is Isaac Tesla. I would say that he's potentially in play against the Bears. I know the Lions probably want to play spoiler to ruin the end of the Bears season and any hope of, moving. I don't know, like their matchups specifically in the playoffs that they're trying to avoid. I think the Bears can go from, the Bears can sit at number 2 and basically get the Packers at home again. I don't know if the Bears want to do that. They might prefer, I would say so. They probably want to avoid playing the 49ers or the Rams or whoever ends up, even maybe the Seahawks, whoever ends up in that spot over the Packers. Anyway, the point being is that he might go into this game and see the Lions try to play a bit of spoiler, but at the same time, Amon-Ra St. Brown has had 2 injuries this year at least that he's played through. So Tesla in play if they sit Amon-Ra St. Brown, where Tesla would be in the top 40, potentially even better. It depends on what Jared Goff's situation is. On the flip side of that game, did get DJ Moore wrong for everybody out there. Mostly, if you told me Caleb Williams box score, the Bears box score and everything pregame and said, where's DJ Moore? I would have still had him inside the top 20. I was not expecting Caleb Williams to go to Luther Burden that much, that Luther Burden was going to look near 100% in that game, and then it was going to be Burden, Colston Loveland, backfield, Colston Loveland, backfield, Burden. Wow, Caleb Williams did not want to turn to DJ Moore, but he might have to against the Lions because Burden left late in that game again, and Jared Zaccheaus was out of that game. There's another one why I still would have had, even if I knew that most of those targets were going to Burden, and you told me that, I still with no Zaccheaus on top of it, still would have had DJ Moore. Look, it just, process didn't work out. Sorry, I apologize about the DJ Moore thing. Anyway, you might need him as at least a top 25 wide receiver, given all the situation with the Bears wideouts and everything there. So, good news on injuries. Ricky Pearsall is back, and Ricky Pearsall looked good as expected. When Pearsall's healthy and on the field, he's good. It's just a question of how healthy can he be and stay. Seattle, as you know, at home for the division on Saturday night. So Pearsall will probably be inside the top 25 wide receivers. Chimere DK, good yet again. I don't know how he floated on waivers so much at the end of the season, but he's still a wide receiver 4. Wide receiver 4s are going to be inconsistent. That's how they're going to be. But Cam Ward and DK definitely have a thing going, thinking about that for next year as well. Basically his reliable option to turn to against Jacksonville, and the Titans want to play spoilers in that one. And speaking of the Jaguars, disappointed wide receiver again, except for Parker Washington again. Brian Thomas's use just seems to be a little weird towards the end of the season. Sending him downfield a lot, which that's the similar thing to DJ Moore. Back to the Bears game real quick, is that a lot of those plays are taking longer to develop because they're sending him downfield so much, and it's just they don't need to turn to him. It's not even the fact that they don't, they're waiting for the play to develop and it doesn't, and they don't have any time, that being the quarterbacks. They have time. It's just these other options are opening up quicker. And Trevor Lawrence is just so comfortable going to Parker Washington. So against the Titans, definitely in play. Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas, still plenty of upside, especially with the touchdown, but should be wide receiver 3s more than 2s, especially Jacoby Myers. For a lot of people, including myself, had him near the top 15. But that's what we got for Week 18, and we'll be back on Wednesday. I'm still going to be here by myself, though. No guest needs to come in and go through the torture of talking Week 18. But hopefully, like I said, enjoy a good Christmas, have a Happy New Year. Oh, no, you'll hear my podcast before then. I don't know. I'll cut this one off before I keep rambling some more. Yay!